Hi, everyone. Welcome to Network Live Virtually with your meeting host, Jeanette Ortega. I am your guest presenter, Sabrina Watson, and today Jeanette has made me the host because she's out of town and she's got a little bit unstable internet. So she's going to try to pop in when she can and talk to us. But for right now, it looks like I will be taking the controls and introducing myself. So let me find my PowerPoint here, and there we'll go. And now I'll take the screen. This will stop her screen sharing. There we go. Can everybody see my screen okay? Just nod. John, can you see my screen okay? Okay. All right. There we go. Let me close that. And I will start our PowerPoint, hopefully. All right. So again, I am your guest presenter today. My name is Sabrina Watson, for those of you that don't know me. And I am, sorry, I've just got to find everything here. And I am the founder of Network Live Virtually. And as the founder of Network Live Virtually, one of the things that I'm trying to do, or my goal or my focus, is to connect all of you that have the ability to sell your products or services outside of the geographical area in which you reside in to others that may be local or national or even international. And so what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of networking and our networking options and how we can increase the results that we would normally get from networking. And we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that it's the 21st century and those options have changed. And let's see if my slides are going to advance here. Okay, so first of all, I want to introduce myself. As I told you, my name is Sabrina Watson. And you can see I've got some photos here of myself, and I want to tell you a little bit about who I am. As you can see, I'm a mother, I'm a friend, I'm a grandmother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and I'm an aunt. So that is who I am. And I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I spent 36 years in food and beverage, and I want to let you guys know for just a quick minute that I was watching. I don't know if you guys, if anybody, does anybody, you could just answer in the chat for me, please, if you would. Does anybody ever watch Undercover Boss? And if you ever watch Undercover Boss, the one that was on just the other day, actually, was the COO of Nestle's Cafe by Chip or something like that it's called. Anyway, it's a Nestle, small Nestle chain. Well, I shouldn't say they're small. I think they've got like 150 stores, or they got a lot of stores. Anyway, the COO of that Nestle company does not have a degree, and she was on Undercover Boss. And I think that that's really important to note, because when you have an entrepreneurial spirit, it doesn't really matter where you start, you have the ability to have success. So my story is that I have 36 years in food and beverage. And I started at the very beginning of food and beverage in a local cafe in my neighborhood when I was 15 years old. And back then you were supposed to have a work permit. So my mother and I doctored up my birth certificate so that I could go to work in this cafe. And in this cafe, I served my own food. I rang up my own checks. Sometimes I would have to cook. I did a lot of my own dishes if a dishwasher didn't show up. And I cleaned the entire restaurant, or my area of the restaurant, which meant sweeping and mopping and all those good things before I left every night, and took apart all of the equipment out front. And that's where I started. But during the course of the next 36 years, I worked my way through some pretty prestigious places, as you can see, and ultimately had the opportunity to work with a guy named Roger Jones, who was a Toque Noir award-holding chef out of France. And I had gone to work at a neighboring resort hotel, that was La Casa del Zorro Resort Hotel, as a sous chef. I'd worked my way up to a sous chef. And I would spend weekends with this man, and he would teach me to carve ice by hand. I never did learn how to do it with a chainsaw. Sorry, everybody. And he would teach me a lot of other things as well. I ultimately ended up being the executive chef at that particular place, the Casa del Zorro Resort Hotel. And later I was the executive chef for the Regency Inn hotel chains. And later I moved into upper management and managed places. I managed the dining room, for example, at Mission Hills Country Club. And that's the home of the Nabisco Dinah Shore. So I actually took care of all the parties at Dinah Shore's house when the big women's LPGA tournaments were happening prior to her death. And ultimately I owned my own restaurant and went into the bar biz in the end. So I spent 36 years there, and then my mother became sick with cancer, and I just kind of walked away from everything, you know. I just handed the keys off and said I got to go because I felt like it was really more important that I go take care of my mother. So having said that, I went to take care of my mother and discovered that I was going to need to have some kind of income while I was taking care of her. So now instead of being a 36-year food and beverage manager, I became an entrepreneur. And I was stuck in the regard that I didn't have the ability to leave my home. So I had to figure out how I was going to become an entrepreneur. I needed to generate some income. I needed to be able to take care of my mother. And I also needed to find some sanity. Because I don't know if you've ever had to care for a cancer patient, but my mother lived 5 years longer than she was supposed to. So there was long-term care there every single day, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I got online and I started saying, okay, what can I do to become an entrepreneur? And, you know, how could I do that? So I started out, I went to a social media manager school, and I thought that I would become a social media manager. Now, mind you, I had 36 years in food and beverage, so I know that I'm a great people person. So I really thought that being a people person, a social media manager would be a great place for me to be. But lo and behold, I discovered real quickly that I didn't like having clients. And I know that you think that's hysterical, because that doesn't make any sense from somebody who went through food and beverage, but I didn't like having clients. So I dumped that and I chased some shiny pennies for a while, and I built a site that was supposed to generate some passive income, you know, and I followed all the passive income guys, and that didn't really work very well either. And then lo and behold, I met a gal who built WordPress websites. And I thought, well, this is fun because I can just build a website. And yes, I do have a client to deal with, but the level of dealing with the client is a whole lot different than trying to be a social media manager, because as a social media manager, everybody wants results. As a website designer, all I have to do is build a great looking, functional website that works for the client and has the look that they want. So it was a whole easier world. So I dove hot and heavy into that website building activity. And yes, I was generating income and I was having a great time. And I discovered that I had some creativity that I wasn't even aware that I had. So website building was really cool. But I live in a very small area. So one of my problems was networking. And so, because, you know, even when you work from home, you have to have some place to sell your products and services, even if they're just websites. And we all know you can sell a website anywhere in the world, but you have to have somebody to sell it to. So the first thing that I did was I started looking at where I could go do some networking locally in the evening when somebody else could take care of my mom, and I could get out there and maybe sell some more websites. And of course, the first place that I started was with your basic networking at the Chamber of Commerce. Now, remember that I told you that I live in kind of a rural, more remote area. I'm about an hour and 15 minutes northwest of Tampa Bay. So it's a small resort area, and chamber mixers are not necessarily very big, 25 to 50 maybe, depending on where they're held and who's footing the bill for the food. So that's where I started. And I found that at chamber mixers, people really have what I call the pigeon syndrome. They want to fly by, tell you who they are, drop their shit, which is what I call their card, because they didn't stop and take any time to invest in me or learn anything about me or find out who I was. They just made sure I knew who they were, and off they went. So I didn't find that very satisfying, and I didn't sell a lot of websites there. So then, of course, I checked into referral groups, and I actually attended 2 referral groups. And when I attended the second one, I discovered that all the people from the first one, or most of the people from the first one, were in that referral group also. Now, if these referral groups were seat specific, let me check the chat here, sorry. Oh, Cindy, I hope my sound's not dropping. Sorry. I hope not. I am plugged in, so hopefully my internet is not unstable. But I'll keep moving along, so just let me know. So my second area, like I was talking about, was referral groups. And I discovered that most of the same people from the first referral group were in the second referral group. So if these referral groups were industry specific, and I was the website builder in the referral group number 1, and somebody else is the website builder in referral group number 2, where does the loyalty lie? I'm dropping out again. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what the problem is. I am plugged in, so and I'm plugged into the internet even. Okay, so John says now I'm back. Okay. So here's where my problem lied, is that with these referral groups, if I'm the website builder in group 1 and somebody else is the website builder in group 2, where does the loyalty lie? And, I found that kind of disturbing, that people would be more than one referral group. So they didn't have any loyalty to me if you were in my first group, or how did you decide where the referrals came to, who you were going to give them to? So, of course, then the next opportunity there are lunch and learns, and I found a lot of great opportunity in lunch and learns and really enjoyed them. However, the lunch and learns I found became expensive. Because you're always paying for lunch, or you're paying for the event, or whatever the case may be, you're paying for something. And the same thing with speaking events. I found that they were very fruitful, but again, they were expensive, and I had drive time involved. And so they were wonderful. They were just hard to attend a lot of due to the cost. Roundtable events. I also tried roundtable events, and again, those were great. I don't have any complaints about roundtable events. They were actually much better because I really didn't have to spend a lot for, to go there. I didn't necessarily have to involve food and all that kind of stuff, or a charge for the speaker or any of that kind of thing. And then in addition to that, there were happy hour events. Now, frankly, happy hour events were my funnest events because I would get the opportunity to go have a glass of wine and mingle with others. And I enjoy a good glass of wine. I like a nice Gewürztraminer. And I love to talk, as you can tell. So that worked out really well for me. Happy hour events were great too. But again, I'm in a small area, so it's the same people for me over and over and over and over again. And that was when I stumbled along the idea of, ta-da, virtual networking. And for those of you that have been to virtual networking, I don't think it can replace your local networking, but I think it is super viable as a combination, some virtual and some live, because if you can sell outside of the 4 walls that you're in, whether it be locally, nationally, or internationally, you definitely should be involved into virtual networking. And because I think that is where the world is going in a lot of ways. Everything is going virtual. So we can add to our list of networking the 21st century way, which is going to be virtual networking. And I want to talk a little bit about networking. When you get out there, and everybody tells you a little bit about how to handle yourself in networking. So I'm going to refer to a lot of this as like your local, but the same thing kind of applies to virtual, because we're going to talk about reaching out here in a minute to the people that you meet in our virtual settings, and the same things apply. You've heard the old adage, people want to do business with somebody they know, like, and trust, and that's all still true. But in addition, they want to do business with people they know and people who are authentic. So I want to tell you that when you're networking, whether it's virtual or local, be yourself and be authentic. And you'll see that I put a couple of pictures here. I ride a Harley. These are my girls on the right side there that I hang out with, that I ride motorcycles with. But I'm also a housewife, and twice a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas, as you can see here, I make a large amount of homemade apple pies that I give to my friends, that I put in the freezer. And in fact, I took one out last night just to bake. So I feel like I'm a pretty colorful person. But you want to be yourself, but we're going to talk about that. Be yourself, but carefully. Because even though in the 21st century, everybody wants to do business with somebody they know, like, and trust, you got to be a little bit careful about how you put yourself out there. And one of the things that I want to tell you is you can build a foundation of self-knowledge. You can share some personal and professional histories. You can share your successes, and you can share your failures and the lessons you've learned in those successes and failures. But you need to carefully choose which stories are most appropriate to share with others. Even in virtual networking, when sometimes we get the opportunity at the end to ask questions one-on-one of each other that are in the networking event, you don't want to share the story on live video here that's going to be recorded and played back on the website about, the time you fell off your golf cart when you were drunk coming back from the country club. So I don't know. I'm sure that you would have learned something in that scenario, but I'm not sure that networking is the place to share it. Also, consider relevance when you're being yourself. You want to be careful about your self-disclosures. Make sure that they're skillful. Choose the substance, the process, and the timing of those revelations to further the task at hand. And many people do that, and they also promote themselves at the same time. Don't promote yourself. Just be careful about the relevance and attempt to create some purely personal relationships in that relevance. When you put some of those personal things out there, you should do so to create a relationship with somebody that you feel like can appreciate this skillfully chosen self-disclosure, and it's somebody that you're looking to really build a personal relationship with, maybe not somebody that you're looking to build a referral with. Keep your revelations genuine. I mean, this should be a no-brainer, but I'm amazed at how often I catch people who fabricate tales. And I know that you guys have all seen somebody do this. You're standing right next to them, and they start to tell a story about something that happened at an event, and you were at the event, and you know that that's not the way it went down. So that's just going to make you look bad to people, and they're not going to want to do business with you anyway. So remember to keep those revelations genuine. Understand the organizational and cultural context. So considerable research has shown that people from individualistic societies, such as the United States and India, are more likely to disclose information about themselves and expect others to do the same, more so than people from collectivist societies such as China or Japan. So understanding the cultures is important especially if you're going to go to a cultural style event and network there. And I want to tell you, I'm going to give you a revelation here about myself personally that was really not a good one, but I didn't know any better. I do know better now, and that's part of why I'm telling you to understand the organizational and cultural context of the people that you're meeting with. I was in a conversation with a man and a woman, and the woman was Japanese. And somehow the conversation came up about wartime. And I don't really remember what the conversation was, but it was about the war, and how maybe the Japanese reacted to this or that, things that happened during one of the wars. And I blurted out of my mouth, well, why didn't the Japs just do this? Whatever it was that I said, I don't even remember. And that woman went down my throat so fast, I could feel her clawing her way down my throat. What I didn't know was that it was low class and rude and just ignorant to call somebody of Japanese descent a Jap. I guess you can't call somebody who's Hispanic a Mex either. But I didn't know that, So it's important that you learn that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm, making excuses for myself for the fact that I didn't know, but I can guarantee you that I've never made that mistake again. So if you're going to go to some kind of a cultural event to network, take a little bit of time to learn about the people that may be there, so that when your foot falls out of your mouth, hopefully you won't have to stuff it back in, because you'll be okay. And of course, my last tip for that is delay or avoid very personal disclosures. Intimate stories do strengthen relationships, but there should be a relationship there already. They don't establish them. And sharing too much personal information too quickly breaks a lot of norms of behavior. And sometimes you may end up feeling or looking awkward, needy, or even unstable. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about that. Again, I'm going to give you guys a personal disclosure here. I was dating a man one time, and this has nothing to do with networking, but it's about these personal disclosures. And I thought that I was a colorful, fun, silly person. And I used to make jokes once in a while, and I'd say, somebody'd ask me, well, Sabrina, what decision did you make about this? And I would go, well, I talked to myself and I said, self, we should probably do this, or self, we should probably do that. And I thought I was being silly. But the gentleman actually broke up with me over it because he thought that I was unstable because I would make those third person comments. It wasn't a big deal. So anyway, but I just wanted to tell you guys about that because I thought you'd kind of get a little kick out of it. The bottom line, and I want to talk about the bottom line in 21st century networking, is that yes, you can be colorful, and yes, you can be yourself, and yes, you can be authentic, and yes, you can be all those things, and you can be all those things in person and online and virtual. But just with the cautions that I've told you about, you'll want to be careful how much you really put out there. So, and even with your social media, I let people know that I ride a Harley because I do post pictures when I go to bike events, and clearly I dress like a biker. But again, I also make pies twice a year, and I have 11 grandchildren, and I'm an entrepreneur, and you post all those things, but you just need to do it all with caution. And the next thing I want to talk about is when you create those connections, or you make those connections at an event, whether it be virtual or local, you want to remember to take the time to reach out. And I was just asking Cindy about this a minute ago, and when we're done with this presentation, I'm going to ask you guys again. You need to take the time to reach out, because it doesn't matter how many virtual events you go to or how many local events you go to if you don't reach out and connect with any of these people. I can go to an event that has 400 people and come home with 58 business cards, which I just did in December. I went to an event that had 400 people present. I came home with 58 business cards because part of the event was like a little speed networking portion that lasted for about 45 minutes. And I came home with 58 cards. So I got 58 cards in my hand, and I'm like, yippee! So does that mean I just go home and I add those 58 cards to my email list? No. That would be absolutely the wrong thing to do. So I carefully crafted a letter to each and every one of those 58 people. And I asked them for a meeting. So when we're creating connections, I want to talk a little bit about utilizing both virtual and local networking opportunities. You need a great mixture of both, because we can't all just hide in our homes. We do need to get out there and meet people. And like I said, I did craft a personal letter to each and every one of them, asking to schedule a curiosity conversation. And when I had the opportunity to meet with them, I met with them on Zoom, just like we're meeting right now. And I asked them all about them first. I said, hey, Jeanette, I think I did this with Jeanette Ortega when we met. Hey, Jeanette, I want to know all about you. Tell me all about you. And when you're listening to somebody tell you all about them, you get an opportunity of who they are and a sense of whether or not you can work with them, or if there are any possibilities there for referrals or business or whatever the case may be. They'll ask you about you, probably, and if they don't worry about it. Those 58 that I scheduled meetings with, I call them my curiosity conversations. I think I ended up with 35 of the 58 I think I ended up with 35 meetings. I can't remember the exact number. And of those 35 meetings, I only had one in which I said, tell me all about yourself. And he told me all about himself. He told me all about his product. And then he tried to sell me. And as soon as I made it clear to him that I was not interested in buying his product, that I thought it was a very interesting product, but I didn't think it was a product for me, the conversation was over. And he was done and he was gone. So those people, I call them pigeons, they're still around. Even virtually, they're still around. And I've never had a conversation with that gentleman since. So, and you know, during the course of those conversations, when you're reaching out and connecting with somebody and learning all about them and sizing up any opportunity, because that's what we're really doing, is sizing up any opportunity that we may have. If you don't see something, ask. I mean, I will simply say to somebody, how can we collaborate? How can we do business? Or how can we share referrals? Or can we? Is there anything that we can do here together? I did recently have a meeting with a coach that I'd reached out to virtually. We had a meeting, we had a great time. And when we got to the very end, and I said, how can we collaborate, or how can we do business, or how can we share referrals? It was kind of funny, but we actually came to the mutual conclusion that we couldn't, believe it or not. There was just absolutely no way that the two of us could do any business together. He does only local, high-end coaching. Let me check the chat box here real quick. Cindy says, that's funny. Yeah, he does. We really did. But he does only local, high-end coaching. And I mean like high-end. I mean, he charges his people like, you know, $2,000 to $4,000. I think his plan is $2,000 a month. I can't remember. And he's only local. He was only local to a specific city. And he was local to Tampa Bay, and I happened to be in Tampa Bay at an event, and he was one of the 58 cards I collected. So I really literally had to walk away from the meeting saying, okay, there's absolutely nothing that we can do for each other, but hey, I'll see you around at events. Really nice to meet you. And I said, you know, if you decide you want to get into the virtual world, or you want to look at putting together a program that you can sell as an evergreen product on your site, or live virtual coaching, you know, that's something I can help teach you. So feel free to reach out and connect with me. And he did. I mean, he agreed, I should say. He didn't connect with me. We have not connected as of yet, but it piqued interest in him enough to say, you know, that might be a really good idea, and that might be a thought for me, for my business down the road. So we're going to stay in touch, and I'm sure that he is sending people my way today, because a lot of people come my way every single day, and I'm not even really sure where they come from anymore, to be honest, because I attend so many networking events and virtual events. And I probably should track where everybody comes from, but I really don't. So let that be a lesson. You guys should do a better job than me. Frankly, I feel like I'm a little too busy for that, but I'm not complaining. But if I cannot find something in the conversation that lets me know how I can really collaborate or do business or share referrals with somebody, I flat out ask. Yeah, and I'm also going to tell you, network as often as you can. We're just going to run through some quick statistics. Now, all of these statistics are going to be about in-person stuff, because this is the first virtual networking site or group that I am aware of. And now, if anybody else knows of any others, I would certainly love to know about it. But to my knowledge, we're the first gang in the world. And we have recently grown to have people that attend in 8 countries now. So, and we have some new hosts, more new hosts coming in January. I believe we have one coming in from Canada, so that'll be our first international host. So, you know, if you can sell in Canada, you'll want to attend her meetings. And it's going to be some pretty exciting stuff. But like I said, these are all going to talk about in-person meetings. 84% of people say they prefer in-person meetings. And we can't really elaborate on that virtually wise, because we don't have those kind of stats yet, although we will at some point in time. 85% say they build stronger, more meaningful business relationships during in-person business meetings and conferences. 77% say they prefer in-person conferences due to the ability to read body language and facial expressions. And I do want to point out with this, though, is that when we network live virtually like this and we have the camera, you have the same ability to read body language and facial expressions. It might not be as clear as it is in person, but boy, we're pretty close. 75% say they prefer in-person conferences because they lead to more social interaction and the ability to bond with coworkers or clients. 49% say they prefer in-person business meetings because they allow for more complex strategic thinking. I do want to point out that there are a lot of online mastermind groups that you can get involved in now, and they are every bit as good as a person-to-person business meeting. 44% say they prefer in-person conferences and business meetings because they provide a better environment for tough, timely decision making. I am on a board of directors for a nonprofit, and we meet virtually. And we know that our meetings are going to run 2 hours, but we still manage to get the things done that we need to get done. And 95% say face-to-face meetings are essential for long-term business relationships. These stats are courtesy of HubSpot.com, so you can look them up if you would like. I think that face-to-face meetings are essential for long-term business relationships, but they're just as essential in the virtual world as the face-to-face world. And you have to remember that most of these people that are putting out these stats don't even know there is a virtual world. So how lucky are you? And last but not least is my Find Me screen. So for those of you who don't know where to find me, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on BlabIM. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me at networklifevirtually.com. There's my email and my phone number. Yes, that phone number goes to voicemail, but I am promptly notified that there is a voicemail. And coming soon, for those of you that would like to do more networking, we will be starting probably the first week of January, not this week, but next week, networklivetv.com, and that will actually forward you to our Blab show. I'm thinking about doing 5 days a week. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see how that works out. But you will always be able to find me networking somewhere and interacting with people because that's really what I like to do. And that's what I got, gang. So let me turn on my video here. And let me get my thumbnails up. As soon as I find them all. There we go. All right. So did you get any sound yet, Miss Jeanette? I think not. It doesn't sound like it. And I have you unmuted, so for whatever reason, you don't have any sound. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. Thoughts, comments, questions?
I'd like to ask a question.
Shoot, John.
Why don't you do a similar session, only talking only about networking virtually, as in how would you open up sales to Chile?
You know, I don't know that I could, I don't know, to be honest, because I haven't crossed that bridge yet, but when that bridge is available, I am going to cross it. For me, myself personally, I don't know about the rest of the world, though. How would you open up sales to, say, Chile? Are you able to sell in Chile? Would you be able to sell it to somebody in Chile?
In the space that I'm in, it would be reasonable for me to do that, but I don't know how to make the connection. So I'm working on inbound marketing to try to solve that.
Okay. So when we have people that are attending someday from Chile, you would be able to make that connection, right?
Sure, but I'd like to do it in higher numbers. By the way, if you want to go international, you might put a 1 in front of your telephone number because 352 is the country code for Luxembourg.
It is? Well, thank you for that, John. I will put a 1 in front of that now that you've said that. See, even I learn something every single day. Thoughts, questions, comments? And that was the reason, Cindy, that I asked you about reaching out. Now you know exactly where I was going with that, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what about you, John? Have you reached out to any of the people you've met on virtual networking?
No, I have not. Well, actually, I've had some interaction with Steve, but you know, I had previously met him on a different forum, so I don't know how you want to count that. And I am here because of, in your forum, because of finding out about it through Steve,
right?
Who I met in a different forum.
Right. Jeanette wants to know, John, how long you have been networking virtually. Jeanette, I can hear you typing, so you must have sound now.
You
No,
mean,
you don't.
when you say networking virtually, you mean through Networking Live?
Are you talking about through NLV, Jeanette? She says yes.
Oh, so I think I've been participating here off and on for a couple of months.
So then I guess the question is, what are you looking to get out of it? How can networking virtually help you?
Well, I have not seen it as a virtual networking tool. I have seen it as a way to attend sessions to learn something.
Okay. That's a very, very valid point. And I don't know if you know, but on the website, we are really amassing quite the library of presentations and training. But I agree with you. I think that's part of what we're trying to do as well, is provide some quick, easy tips and training in the beginning of all of our meetings. So Cindy, can I ask you, you said you have reached out and connected. Do you also find the meetings as a way to get some training?
Oh, yeah. In fact, that's probably why like John, I originally started going to him. I've only been to this I think is maybe my third, but for the training part. And I never, it's funny, it took your presentation for me to really catch on to what this is, because I never thought of it as a networking tool, like me going to the monthly luncheon networking group that I belong to or whatever, where although everybody shared information at the end, I didn't think about treating it like I would treat meeting people there. So I have connected up with one gentleman. He and I keep setting up appointments and having conflicts. So we haven't actually connected person to person yet, but we're trying to. And then I've connected with somebody else, but I'm not sure if it was through here or I'm on Charlene's Blab every morning.
Oh, okay.
And that's how I got introduced to this. Was she kept inviting, and the first time I hit the button, the launch it was like, man, I'm in the room already. It freaked me out, and I dropped out. But because I wasn't camera ready, I didn't realize I was going to be jumped right into it and be right there. So I'm like, oops, well, can't do that right now. But so it's, yeah, I'm glad I caught this presentation because, yeah, well, I mean, what was I thinking or not thinking, everybody that's in here, I need to be connecting up with them.
And absolutely. And that's the reason, go ahead.
I was going to say the reason I'm on this one is because I had a conversation with Jeanette a couple weeks ago, and she invited me to hers. I've been trying to go to Charlene's, and but I met Jeanette through Charlene. It was just one of those loop things where I had a conversation with Charlene about some stuff I'm working on, and she suggested I connect up with Jeanette, and then Jeanette suggested I come to her Tuesday morning.
Funny thing, that sounds like networking, Cindy.
Yeah, it sure does, doesn't it?
But aren't you building some amazing relationships from the comfort of your home?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's wonderful. And a lot of those points that were made about, 95%, all the percentages you were reading, it's like there's a lot of that you can get through virtual networking, and it can be a way of reaching a lot more people, and then you can condense it down to the people that you want to make the effort to connect up with one-on-one.
Yes.
So it's a good way to start and have a wider net to start with. So
absolutely. Hi, Cindy. Welcome, Cindy. I'm sorry I keep unmuting you and you keep muting yourself, so maybe you don't want to talk to us. I don't know. Say hello.
Well, mine was the typewriter, so I'm also
you're the
answering
typewriter.
other questions there. So that's why I keep muting myself. I'm answering messages as I go.
Welcome. Is this your first networking meeting?
No, I think I was on one of your WordPress meetings before, but I think.
Okay. Awesome. Glad to see you. Well, listen, you guys, it's 12:47, or my time. I don't know where everybody's located. I know John's over the pond somewhere, or the river or the ocean or way over there. That's all I know. But So I have no idea what time it is there. So let's start the networking portion of our meeting. I want to remind everybody that there is a chat box down. It's on the bottom where you're going to be able to place your contact information. And when you click on the chat box, you'll also see that there's a Save Chat button. So you'll be able to save the chat. It will download to your computer as a text file in the folder document/Zoom. So, and like we were just talking about, that was part of my presentation today was reach out to each other. Find out if you have information that you guys may be able to share, or whether you may be able to collaborate or do referrals, or if you're a good fit for each other business-wise. And of course, we want you to invite lots more people so that this grows. We have 7 meetings a week currently. We have about 500 registered users in 8 countries. Now, that's not to say that everybody shows up at every meeting. They don't. They show up when they can. And growing rapidly. There's a lot of action happening right now on our email list. So, and there's new hosts coming in January, so it's going to be a ton of fun. Thank you for coming, Cindy and Cindy. I appreciate your support. So that's from Jeanette, who still has no sound. So how do you feel, Cindy, about Cindy Harley, about getting started? Tell us all about yourself and put your contact information in the chat box if you would like to connect with others.
I'm a virtual assistant. I actually am networked here. I contract with Jeanette. I also have where I'm contracting with some other employees, but I do some WordPress websites, do a lot of working with people with Google Hangouts and putting them on. But that's about it. So
Okay.
you can probably contact me through Jeanette.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a good way of doing it.
Okay.
Great contact information.
All right, Miss Cindy, how about your turn?
Okay, whoop, I lost you somehow here. Oh, there you are. Okay, I clicked off of it and then I couldn't find my way back. I've been working on network marketing, online marketing for the last 2 years. So my strengths are in, I do coaching. My strengths are in Facebook marketing, Facebook ad campaigns, video marketing, SEO, Instagram. I'm up to over 9,000 followers now. Woohoo, on Instagram. And branding, I know a bit about branding and helping people with that. I have a very strong business background, which is what I was talking to Jeanette about, and I can apply that to help people. In fact, one of the ideas in the back of my head is to develop. I'm going past my elevator speech now.
That's okay.
Is to create a course or modules for people starting a home business, what to look at, because a lot of instructions are not there on starting the business and setting it up with budgets and how to expense things out and what's taxable and a lot of stuff like that. So I thought that would be a good niche for me, as as I'm really into the mindset. I've been learning so much about marketing mindset, home business mindset, success mindset. I mean, just in general in life. And so that's something else I'm been kind of mulling around a book on that. But I'm open to collaborating with people on a lot of different things. I'm looking to increase my income right now. So that's why I was talking with Jeanette as far as doing virtual assistant or more online business management work, building up to that. I'm open to, because I need more cash flow right now to sustain, where I'm at. And so I'm more concentrating on finding things that I can get a more immediate cash flow, other than something where I have to build a business and the cash flow is down the road yet. So that's where I'm at, and I'll throw I'm prepared this time. I actually wrote up a little information.
And you saved it somewhere so you could just copy and paste. Good job.
Yeah, because I noticed last time, I was like, oh, that would be smart. Just have it already and pop it in there instead of just typing in my email address and stuff. So, all right. And you're a lady after my own heart, Sabrina. Apple pie is my favorite thing to make and eat. And so that's a lot of fun.
Well, right after John introduces himself, I'll tell you guys an apple pie story that you will absolutely die over because I think you'll find it very funny. But
Okay.
all right, Mr. John, your turn. Why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
I'm waiting for the apple pie.
Are you?
So I'm John Gale. I have consulting companies in Silicon Valley and in Europe. I provide commercialization and corporate development services to funded high-tech startups and their investors. So I've been trying to improve my inbound marketing by developing a blog. I'm up to about 80 posts now, so I'm just starting.
Wow. And your services though are for pretty big companies or no?
Funded startups. So they're like one of the companies. I'm helping a startup move their corporate headquarters from one country to another, and they've got 5 employees.
Oh, okay. Wow. So that's not necessarily a huge business or a huge company. And that's usually what I think of when I think of you and helping funded startups is I think of like Microsofts and, Blabs and those guys, but that's not necessarily always the case, huh?
No, I'm working with guys who are either at sort of the advanced seed stage or early venture capital stage primarily.
Wow. Awesome. All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you guys my quick apple pie story, and then I got some questions for each of you. Miss Jeanette Ortega is going to have to put all her information in the chat box because we can't hear her. So I first started making apple pies about 15 years ago. Well, all pies, not just apple, about 15 years ago. I have a girlfriend who owns a U-Pick farm. And she has a 40-acre U-Pick farm, and the majority of it is in apples. And apple season is October in the state of Washington. Last 2 weeks of September and all 4 weeks of October is apple season. So Saturdays and Sundays at her farm, the lines at her little U-Pick farm, because she has a beautiful little U-Pick farm in the middle of this small cluster of farms, and they're all U-Pick farms, but hers is the nicest and the prettiest, and she keeps it up and she paints it, all that kind of stuff. And the lines at her U-Pick farm are like miles long on Saturdays and Sundays. So she has to have at least 2 pie makers work on Saturdays and Sundays. Well, in the beginning, it was just me. These days, they have 2 or 3. And I just did it as a friend. She'd pay me, but I did it kind of as fun, and I'd go out there on Saturdays and Sundays and do it for her. And I eventually worked myself to the point where I could produce about 25 pies an hour. Now, I also want to tell you that these are from scratch by hand. Okay, so I got somebody hand peeling apples for me, and I'm making my dough from scratch, and I can do about 25 an hour. So I did that for, I don't even know how many years, several years for her, probably up until I probably did it for 10 years for her, I don't know. But anyway, she taught me to make apple pies, and this woman can make an apple pie that will absolutely knock your socks off. So I make apple pies every fall with a couple of my girlfriends in my kitchen. We would go to the U-Pick farm, get a couple cases of apples, and make apple pies right there in my kitchen. And I taught them how to make apple pies the way she did. And we would make freezer pies. So everybody would take home freezer pies, and they'd have pies for the next 6 months. Well, one of the girls that was making pies in my kitchen had taken a pie to work for some kind of an event, that she baked it and took it. And everybody at this event raved about her apple pie. They just could not get over it. It was the best apple pie they'd ever eaten in your life. And this woman really does make the best apple pies ever in the world. And there was a secret ingredient. And so this woman that she didn't like at work started bugging her about the recipe. And she said, I can't give you the recipe because it's a secret family recipe. And this girl would not leave her alone. Well, the secret recipe is fresh apple juice. So she would take fresh apple juice, heat it on the stove, add the cinnamon and the sugars and the flavors and tighten it up real tight, and then pour it over her apples before she would bake her apple pies. So she gave the woman the recipe, and because she wouldn't leave her alone, but she didn't tell her how to make it. She just let her know that the secret ingredient was fresh apple juice, fresh run through a juicer at home. And so the girl came back to work about 2 weeks later, and she goes, I got to tell you, Brenda, she goes, that pie, my girlfriend's name was Brenda, she goes, that pie, that was the best tasting pie I ever ate in my life. She goes, but it was soupy. I don't know what I did wrong. And my girlfriend looked at her and said, I don't know what you did wrong either. And never told her. To this day, that woman doesn't know what's wrong with her apple pies. So if she ever sees this, she'll probably recognize herself and know how to fix her apple pies. So yeah, she didn't tell her. So this one makes soup apple pies. But anyway, I thought you guys would get a big kick out of that. I want to know, John, what time it is where you're at and what the weather's like there.
Okay, it is 5:58
PM?
Yes. In other words, it's 5 hours after your Eastern time that you do this by.
Okay.
And just a minute, I'll consult my trusty iPhone for the weather. So it's 15 degrees centigrade. Today it will go up to a high, or was, and I guess it's still going to go up to 16 supposedly. And the low today was 13. Now, if I wanted to be nice and translate that to you,
I was just going to ask that.
I would tell you that 15 degrees is the same as 59 Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And so actually the weather in Portugal is very similar to the weather in Northern California. So I moved here from Silicon Valley, and it's pretty similar.
Okay. 59 degrees is okay. I can live with that. How about you, Cindy? What time is it where you're at, and what's the weather?
I'm in Central Time, so it's noon here, and we finally are getting cold. Not that I'm, saying that's wonderful, but it's been a very warm fall, an early winter. But we're at 39 degrees, and we're going to start freezing at night again tomorrow night. But it's been great because I have cattle and sheep, and when it starts freezing at night, then we've got a couple situations where we have to setups for water for livestock, where we have to actually shut things down at night if it freezes and turn it back on the next day, and empty hoses. Not the best setup, but it's in a couple places that's what we have to do. So we've been enjoying that. So that's where we're at. So
Awesome.
we're gonna have winter.
Your turn, Jeanette. You can put it in the chat box. What's the time zone where you're at, and what's the temperature? See, we're going to make her work on it anyway, whether she wants to or not. So you guys know that I am in Eastern time zone. I am in middle Florida, so it's 1 p.m. where I am at, and I am not sure what the temperature is right now. I'm going to guess it's about 82 degrees, and we have had significantly warmer fall, record-breaking warmer fall down here. In fact, in December of last year, my daughter was down here visiting, and it was freezing. We were going to the amusement parks in coats and sweatshirts and freezing. Well, freezing for us is 50. If it gets down to 50 with a wind, you better look out, baby, because I am cold. So, and John's already, I was going to ask John that question, Jeanette, but you've already asked it, and I'm going to bring that up anyway. So anyway, Jeanette's in northern Minnesota visiting family, and it's 19 Fahrenheit with snow melting all around. Wow.
New Mexico.
Northern New Mexico. Okay, there she is, northern New Mexico. And so she also asked John what took him to Portugal, and he said, I married a Portuguese woman. We wanted to live in Europe. Where'd you meet a Portuguese woman at, John?
She was on the faculty at UC Berkeley.
Oh, well, that's how that works. I guess there's no bachelor in your future. No millionaire bachelor show, huh?
Nope.
Okay, you guys. All right. It is 1:02, and that is pretty much the end of our time together. Does anybody have a question for anybody else they would like to ask? No, we're good. All right. Jeanette says, thanks, everyone, for being here. And maybe next time you see her, she'll be able to chat. And, hey, bring your friends, family, bring some more business coworkers, and let's get this thing rocking. And I can't wait to see you all again. You can all wave bye-bye now.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.